abuse our labor, keep them part-time, working 40 plus a week, no health insurance, and it gets better, we can buy them.
This is Steve Zeltzer with WorkWeek, and today in Argentina and Buenos Aires, there is going to be a demonstration at the American Embassy to protest the attack by the United States, threats against Argentina, and also the increasing threat of a invasion attack on Venezuela and also possibly Colombia. And joining us is Gullermo Kane. He's a professor at the University of Buenos Aires and also a supporter of the Workers' Party in Argentina. Welcome to our show, Gullermo.
Hello, Steve. How are you? Thanks for having me again.
So, Gullermo, why don't you set the stage, because the United States now is very much involved in what's going on in Argentina with a promise of $20 billion if Javier Milei wins the election. At the same time, the United States is threatening not just Venezuela and Colombia, but all countries in Latin and Central America. It seems like this effort of Trump and the government of the United States to intervene directly into the affairs of Argentina is leading to more and more opposition in the working class among the people to the United States.
Yeah, today we're going to do the closing rally of the electoral campaign of the Left Workers United Front of Argentina, and we decided to hold it at the U.S. Embassy in Buenos Aires against the agreement between Milei and Trump, which is an agreement against the Argentine people and against the Argentine working class. And then, of course, the idea of Trump promising aid to Argentina really has nothing to do with defending the interests of the working class in Argentina. What's going on is that Milei has been financing different functions of speculative financial circuits through state funds, and he's run out of state funds. And he's also burned through $20 billion that the IMF gave him in April. And he's maintaining the peso artificially high through selling dollars that are in the National Bank of Argentina. And both he and capitalists in Argentina are discussing going to a devaluation, but he didn't want to do this devaluation before the upcoming election of this Sunday, October 26th, because it would probably lead to a new inflation hike. And the economic situation is already very bad here in Argentina. Public consumption has gone down. A lot of jobs were lost. About 600,000 jobs were lost in these 2 years of Milei government. And if there was a new inflation hike as his sole claim to economic success, is that he's reduced the rate of inflation rise. We still have a high inflation. This year will probably be about 30% yearly inflation, but he considered that to be a success because previous numbers were higher. So he was trying to avoid a new devaluation before the elections. Since his funds run out and a new runoff against the Argentine peso began when he lost a regional election in the province of Buenos Aires in September. I think we had an interview more or less around that point. Trump has decided to act directly in the Argentine currency market, buying Argentine pesos with U.S. Treasury dollars, and also buying Argentine bonds. What's really interesting is that this has not stopped the financial push against the Argentine peso, as has happened other times that the U.S. government has intervened. The other thing that has happened, which I'm sure you saw, is that at the White House last week, Trump conditioned, as you said when you asked the question, the big new aid package that they were announcing on Milei winning the elections, which is actually not a very likely outcome. This had a lot of backlash in Argentina. It was a bit of a political boomerang because, many people rejected this as an extortion and as an attempt to intervene directly in the political life of Argentina. The local U.S. Ambassador Peter Lamelas has already been meeting with provincial governors, bourgeois opposition, and even trade union bureaucrats. So they're very much in a position where, as part of their whole push against commerce with China and Chinese influence in Latin America, and trying to get a foothold for the U.S. on strategic materials, particularly lithium and rare earths in Argentina, they're trying to intervene directly, not only supporting Milei's aggressive ultra-right government, which has been the most aggressive government against Argentine workers since the military dictatorship, and which has already started having big electoral defeats and is falling in the surveys of public approval. But they're trying to sidestep the federal government and even take contact directly with the local governments in Argentina through the U.S., particularly on these issues of the natural resources that they want to exploit for U.S. companies.
And
so we reject this, and this is why this has become a main point of Argentine politics, and that's why we're saying out with Trump, Milei, and the IMF from Argentina, and also against, of course, U.S. intervention in Venezuela, in Ecuador, against Colombia, in Panama, the new bases they also want to build in Puerto Rico. Military bases are part of the debate with the Milei government as well. They want to set up a new military base in Tierra del Fuego in exchange for this aid package, which will, have high interests and be part of the foreign debt of Argentina, of course.
And of course, the Trump fascist, Musk and others government, like the agenda of Milei, of privatization of all public resources, similar to Project 2025 in the United States. They see Milei as a operative for big capital, for the billionaires that will privatize the entire economy. It seems, however, that in Argentina, that's kind of backfired. Even amongst previous supporters of Milei, they have second thoughts about his agenda. What's going on politically with Milei's support? Why did he lose the vote to stop the override of his budget, which provided more funding for education and healthcare?
Well, there's 2 or 3 reasons for that. The first one is there's a strong popular working class movement for jobs, for wages, and for public services, which are being attacked by Milei. And for example, in the movement in defense of the public university, where as you said, I'm a teacher, we've had at certain points in the past 2 years, 1 million people in the streets for public university in Argentina. We've had over 100 student occupations of different universities. So there's definitely a strong movement of strikes, of demonstrations, and other forms of protest, which has been demanding this. And this movement, in several of the cases, also in a national pediatric hospital, which is called the Garrahan, in the demands of pensioners, in the demands of handicapped people whose health system has been affected by the austerity chainsaw attack of Milei. All of these demands have been able to make street protest movements that have been very significant. So I think this is a first important point. A second point is that there's a big economic crisis which is set to explode. And even if with the financial help of the IMF and the US Treasury, they've been more or less able to put it off, though there's very severe signs of stress of the economic situation, it is very evident that this is only temporary. And maybe even as soon as next Monday after the election, there'll probably be a big jump in devaluation of the Argentine peso, which will have very far-reaching consequences in terms of all the economic situation, This is not just what Prensa Obrera or the Workers' Party says. It's what J.P. Morgan has put on its last report in Argentina. They're looking at probably at least a 30% devaluation in the next month is what J.P. Morgan estimates. So this, of course, has made even bourgeois forces who are collaborating with Milei take distance. Furthermore, he's had very big corruption scandals, several of them, all very severe, including his main candidate in the largest province of the country, the province of Buenos Aires, has just had to resign because it's been proven that he received funds and he used over 30 times the private airplane of a drug trafficker who's facing a trial in Texas called Fred Machado. Which he denied, and when this became impossible to deny, he finally renounced as a candidate. But at such a late a time as that the ballot, which is going to be used to vote on Sunday, still has the face of this candidate, Espert, who's Milei's candidate, who publicly had to resign because of his a strong personal and financial relationship with a processed drug trafficker who has given him thousands of dollars for what he said were private affairs as a financial consultant, things like this, with a drug trafficker. So this is just late in many corruption scandals. I think the last time we interviewed, I commented other ones where, for example, in the handicapped health sector, where they're doing strong cuts, they're also charging kickbacks from the private companies. They also had the Libra cryptocurrency scandal and several other important corruption scandals. So this is also incensed the public opinion. We're in the middle of a strong situation of poverty, of just a strong economic recession and crisis. These few government officials are becoming very rich, and they're very corrupt. And this also caused bourgeois opposition forces who were collaborating to take distance. But and more so the fact that the Milei government or the Milei political party broke with all of these collaborationist forces and put up their own electoral ballots in all the provinces. This is one of the points that many of the bourgeois media, are criticizing of Milei, because they're saying they support Milei's labor reforms and austerity programs. They think that's positive, but he should be less crazy. He should try to make a broader coalition and these sort of nice proposals, which The Economist, for example, put in its latest article in Argentina, and other bourgeois commentators say he's positive in the reforms he's looking for, but he should have a broader political base. So this is a bit of of the different factors which have joined together and which have made the last 6 months become a situation where he started getting strong parliamentary defeats apart from electoral ones. Now, this being said, Milei is upping the stakes, as he always does, because, for example, even though his veto of the laws which gave a budget and wage increase to the university and the pediatric services have been not only passed by parliament, but his veto was overturned, he put out his regulation of this new law, saying it will not come into exercise until Congress says where it gets the extra funding from. A few weeks ago, for example, Milei had decided to stop charging millions of dollars in taxes to the agricultural capitalists. And this had a strong fiscal cost, and he just did it. When it comes to pediatric hospitals and universities, there's no money, we can't do it. And he violates even not only a law, but a law he vetoed and was overturned by 2/3 of the Congress. So he's really in a terrain where he's even acting illegally from the point of view of the bourgeois constitution of Argentina. and it's going to be up to the capacity of the working class to go for a general strike and for a real mass movement to be able to defeat his attempt. However, a strong electoral defeat may be a first step in destabilizing his government. We'll see what happens on Sunday.
And the debt of Argentina is over a $500 billion. And the United States, there's opposition in the United States now to giving $20 billion to Argentina when they're cutting healthcare benefits. They're telling people SNAP, they're not going to get food, yet they have money to provide to the Milei government to keep him in power. What is the relationship should be between the American working class and the Argentinian working class? It seems like they face a similar kind of attack, a capitalist attack on the working class, on public services, on democratic rights. I know that when Milei took power, he banned any demonstrations, and Trump may do that with the institution of the Insurrection Act, saying that you don't even have the right to protest anymore. You're going to be arrested for protesting. It seems that these fascistic tactics, both Argentina and the United States, have a similarity. They have a similar method of attacking the working class and trying to crush any kind of organized opposition in the working class.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're very much politically aligned and they're close allies. And Trump has said so. And the reason they're throwing in millions of dollars, which I mean, all the economic analysts are saying what they're doing is crazy because they're putting in money that it will be very difficult for the Argentine state to give back, even though that will become debt, but which is also is not having an effect of stabilizing the situation. But the reason they're doing it is because a strong political defeat of the Milei government and even the possibility of Milei falling out of office it will be a political sign of these ultra-right forces becoming weaker. In the same way that Bolsonaro losing the elections and being tried for his coup attempt irritates Trump profoundly, and he makes a public point of even trying to pressure Brazil with special tariffs around this fact. These are his political allies. So I think it's very important for the Milei government to be sorely defeated, not just for him to lose an election, but to be defeated on the sort of political regime change and attack on the working class that his government has represented. This prohibition of protests has completely fallen out of application. There are protests every day in Buenos Aires. There have been since the Milei government came and tried to apply this. We have not respected this illegal prohibition for a single day, but of course, there have also been many arrests and clashes to carry out the protests against this prohibition of Milei. But in general, it's clear that they're political allies and they represent a same trend. But the relation is even, I think, more profound because Trump's plans for relaunching U.S. as an imperialist power are strongly linked to his plans to militarize U.S. society. And while he's pulling back militarily, if not diplomatically, from other areas of the globe, he's strengthening his military pressure against Latin America. And that's, the attack on boats and the threats against Venezuela, the presence of the U.S. Navy in the Caribbean, the pressure to install new bases in Puerto Rico, in Ecuador, where U.S. Army bases were taken away a few years ago, and where the U.S. is pressuring for a plebiscite, and through the pressure of economic aid as well, right now to reinstate 2 bases in Ecuador, where new bases in Argentina are on the table and the debate as well as other countries. So there's definitely a strong military pressure. Milei just signed a presidential decree because he wasn't going to get it necessarily passed by Congress for U.S. troops to come into Argentina to do joint military preparations, military exercises with Argentine forces. So there's there's a growing U.S. military presence in the area, and I think it's very clear that the working class has a common enemy, and this is true internationally, but particularly true for the U.S. working class, the migrant population within the U.S., which is being specifically targeted by Trump as a scapegoat in his militarization and precarization of labor in the U.S., and with this growing threat of a direct military intervention in Latin America, which has begun already with the assassination of the civilian workers who were on these boats, who Trump says were drug traffickers, but who was presented no proof. And even if they were, that's a police, jurisdiction and not a military one to attack, to assassinate the peoples on boats, because on Trump's order in international waters or in the national waters of Latin American countries, which is an act of war. So we're denouncing, of course, all of this, and we think, as we've discussed, Steve, that it's very important for working class, for revolutionary left organizations and broader working class organizations to discuss this. We have to put together a common front. We have to carry out internationalist working class unity and solidarity between workers on both sides of the borders, so to speak, because it is through this common struggle that we will defeat these very dangerous enemies that we have before us.
And in the United States, the No King's Day protests all over the country. Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, third largest city in the United States, called for a general strike, a national general strike against the military being brought into Chicago. There have been attacks in New York. They're planning to bring them into San Francisco. Also, Sarah Nelson, the president of the Airline Flight Attendants AFA, it was the CWA, it's part of the CWA, Communication Workers, also said there had to be a general strike, particularly against the shutdown of the government and air traffic controllers not being paid, health and safety in the airlines. It seems that there is a growing movement in the United States that the working class, the organized working class, has to close down the country to confront this fascistic attack on the working class, on millions of federal workers, on people who need food, healthcare. I mean, it seems like this building movement now against the Trump government, the fascist actions, are leading to politicalization of the working class. Now, in Argentina, you also, your party and others, this United Left Front, have called for general strikes. What is the role of the unions in Argentina? Because, of course, Trump has said that they're communist, that the communists are threatening and taking over in Argentina. What is the reality of that political opposition and the trade union bureaucracy in Argentina?
Yeah, well, the main trade union leadership in Argentina is Peronist, which is very far from communist. I mean, I don't want to make it a history lesson, but Peronism arose to try to block communist influence in the working class movement and the unions very explicitly. They're a nationalist movement, a bourgeois nationalist movement. And what they've done in their governments is to maintain relationships with the IMF and pay foreign debt. But they say they can do it in a more humane way, which ends up not working, and they've led to economic disasters and disasters in the condition of the working class. So they're definitely not communists, first off. And those are the main electoral opposition that Milei is facing up against. Though, when Trump has talked about the possibility of extreme left candidates rising, it's hard to know what he's talking about, because both Trump and Milei throw about communist around, sometimes referring to even very moderate bourgeois politicians.
Obama was a communist, according to
Obama's a communist. Here in Argentina, center-right figures have been called communists by Milei.
Isn't that what fascists do, though? They label liberals.
Yeah, but what I was going for, yeah, and it has a function, absolutely, because the anti-communist idea is the idea of profound reaction. So yeah, I agree. It has to do with the sort of fascist agitation, but it's not completely unfounded, because the left front, we're going to see how, we have to count the votes on Sunday, and there's definitely a strong political polarization, which helps Peronism as the main opposition to Milei. But different surveys, for example, in the city of Buenos Aires, have been saying that the vote for the left front, which is a pole of the revolutionary left, of the extreme left, or the radical left, as Trump likes to call it, is polling in at around 8, 10, 12, or 14% of the vote in different surveys. So, a result like that would, of course, strengthen the political lead of the far left in the country as well. So there, and in the case of some of the forces of the left front, like our party, the Workers' Party, we do have important union positions in the tire workers, in the university, in the Garrahan Pediatric Hospital. Many of these conflicts, these localized conflicts, which have gathered mass support, the PO and the left front plays a leading role in. So we're part of the context. We're part of the situation. The main leadership, the Peronist leadership, however, has not promoted ongoing strikes. They did a few short, isolated strikes in the first year of Milei government, when it looked like he might go up against the structure of the unions, their possibility to collect dues, their possibility to control the health services of the unions. And once they reached an agreement with Milei that his reforms were going to include layoffs, wage reduction, and labor precarization, but they weren't going to affect the structure of the unions as such, they hit the pause button on any ongoing conflict with the government, this is the situation. Now, though the economic situation has worsened in the past year, the central unions have stopped calling any sort of even limited demonstrations against the government. There have been no new strikes, no new national strikes, I mean. So yeah, we're agitating for a general strike to defeat the government. We think it's a need, the same as it is in the US. And we have a big block from the main Peronist trade union leadership, which has done this agreement with Milei, which is an explicit agreement with the government. You can look at it in the national newspapers, the comments of the US ambassador on the responsibility of these trade union leaders. They're very responsible. They don't have an exaggerated opposition against the Milei government. And we did in August a national meeting of trade union leaders and leaders of other working class movements, which gathered over 1,000 leaders nationally to coordinate actions, despite this truce of the trade union bureaucracy, which has been important in calling for demonstrations. Yesterday, there was a demonstration in Plaza de Mayo, where the government, the national government houses of Milei, against and for these laws that were passed by Congress to come into effect on the budget and the wages in the university and the hospitals. So it's definitely a pole of action where the trade union bureaucracy doesn't do anything. And the last thing I want to say on this is, internationally, we've had very good examples of how a general strike can change the political situation. In France, they were discussing a very unpopular budget, and there was this general strike which said, with pickets, with blockades, let's block everything, and the prime minister fell. In Italy, the same thing, with blockades and a general strike, was a strong blow to the Meloni government and her alignment with Israel, which of course she has maintained, but she was on a repressive upsurge, and the streets were filled with people. There were 1 million people in Rome, and they could not carry out their repressive measures, and they even, as hypocrites, sent a ship to guard the flotilla to try to make their government look a bit better with people who are demonstrating massively for Palestine. So I think in the same sense, a mass demonstration like the No Kings March we saw this weekend is very good and shows the disposition of millions of people to demonstrate against Trump. But a general strike could definitely be a turning point against his repressive and militaristic offensive in the U.S. So I think that even reformist social democrats who are leading the working class to defeat talking about a general strike shows that under there, there's thousands of workers who are discussing how we can make the struggles effective. So I think that's a very good sign, and that's something we need to work for in Argentina and in the U.S.
And of course, the AFL-CIO has been intimately involved, the leadership of the AFL-CIO, in supporting U.S. imperialism. They've actually supported attempted coups in Venezuela. The Solidarity Center, which is the international department of the AFL-CIO, was getting $70 million a year from the National Endowment for Democracy and USAID. The NED supported Machado and for getting the Nobel Peace Prize, who is an agent of counter-revolution, called for an attack on Venezuela and really the occupation of Venezuela by the United States. And this is who gets the Peace Prize. But in relationship to Argentina, the AFL-CIO leadership was involved in the military coup in 1976 that led to the death of thousands of Argentinians. There's never been an apology, an honest account of the role of the AFL-CIO in Argentina, the kidnappings of trade unions, of workers in the auto plants and many areas in Argentina. I mean, the role of the AFL-CIO, the trade union bureaucracy, seems pernicious and an obstacle really for this general strike because they support capitalism, they support imperialism. They're not opposed to the military budget of the United States, which is $1 trillion now. It seems like this is a major problem for the working class when they have a union bureaucracy, which is actually politically and ideologically aligned with imperialism and capitalism.
Absolutely. We workers need to take back our unions from these pro-capitalist bureaucracies, and this is a central task of revolutionary organization and the organization of our working class uh, in all our countries, because trade union bureaucrats, though they come from the working class, but they respond to the interests of the bosses. And in the case of an imperialist country like the U.S., the policies of an imperialist power, which has this global action against workers everywhere and to sustain its conditions of oppression. And, as you say, the AFL-CIO has certainly been one of the centers of promoting imperialist oppression and to try to modify the conditions of organization in the different countries to accommodate those interests. Here in Argentina, those funds that you refer to, which came in particularly in big numbers in the 1960s and 70s, helped to solidify a trade union bureaucracy in Argentina, and the CGT, in its likeness, so to speak, a profoundly anti-working class trade union bureaucracy, which is the one that has made these agreements with Milei in recent times that we were talking about. So yeah, that's I think it's important to denounce the role of the trade union bureaucracy. And here in Argentina, we can say that the hitmen of those trade union bureaucrats had blood of Argentine workers and activists on their hands. This Monday was the 15th anniversary of the assassination of our PO comrade Mariano Ferreira in 2010 under the hands of gunmen sent by the Peronist trade union bureaucracy of the railway workers. So even as recently as 15 years ago, they have been using these sort of methods of armed gunmen when the revolutionary left disputes their role and plays a role in organizing workers who they are being left open to very severe forms of exploitation.
And of course, in relationship to the Palestinian people, the Palestinian working class, the AFL-CIO refuses to call what's going on a genocide. They refuse to support a labor blockade. There's going to be a rally in Washington, D.C. this Friday, demanding, Chris Smalls and others, demanding that the AFL-CIO support a labor blockade of Israel, demanding that they accept that this is a genocide. And there's going to be an action at the San Francisco Labor Council as well on Friday, supporting a labor action and also opposing an attack on Venezuela, because the AFL-CIO, as I said earlier, was involved in supporting an attempted coup in Venezuela, never changed their position, never apologized to workers in Venezuela or workers in the United States for being funded by the US government and supporting imperialist interventions. And the other thing, and this is an important question in the United States, is there is no Labor Party. There's no mass working class party that has a program for workers' control of healthcare and public education and energy. The United Left Front, what would be the program of the United Left Front if it was successful in taking power in Argentina? Not that it would take power by an election necessarily, but what would a program be? Because it seems that the economic crisis now driving the situation in Argentina could lead to a collapse of the economy, similar to the United States with the mass speculation of cryptocurrency. You could have a financial collapse in which the entire society comes to a halt because of the internal crisis of capitalism and the contradictions within world capitalism and imperialism.
Sure. Yeah, that's an important question, Steve, because the failure of all capitalist alternatives in Argentina is very marked. We have had very severe economic breakdowns under very varied governments. The Peronists, who present themselves as a sort of progressive nationalist option, more right-wing free market options like that of the Macri government a few years ago, and now an ultra-right version of the free market capitalists under Milei. So all of these different capitalist forces have led to a failure, and we have to show what program the revolutionary left has as an alternative. And the center of that program is the open call for a workers' government. And the central social and economic changes that workers' government has to carry out to be able to make this country, which is very rich in natural resources, which has a very large and well-educated labor force, which is even relatively more industrialized than many countries in the region, and has a certain level of technical development, but which nonetheless falls into very recurring and serious economic crisis, has to do with the foreign debt and with the control of the main centers of our economy by foreign capital. So the first thing we do is cease payment of the foreign debt, nationalize the banking system and international commerce under the control of workers, and nationalize the main the large factories. All of these measures would try to stop speculative attacks on the country. If under a workers' government, it took the sovereign decision to seize all payment of the foreign debt and to concentrate all the riches of our country into a plan of social and economic development, of building the houses that people desperately need, of making sure that the very basic services, running water, electricity, and so on, reach areas even very close to the center of the city of Buenos Aires, where these very basic developments of modern conditions of living have not reached. And if such a plan of urban services were put into march, many jobs would be generated and the industry would be put into motion. But so this would be the center of a working class economic plan to change the situation. And of course, to pay wages, which had to reach the cost of living for a working class family, which is something that capitalism is not assuring to Argentine workers. Which, you know, when we all learned even Marxist economics, no, we said that the price of labor is is given by the cost of reproduction of labor. And this is not being guaranteed today by capitalism in Argentina. Workers have to have 3-4 jobs to make ends meet. So these would be the basic measures that are on the program of the Left Front and a workers' government has to carry out to open up a new situation in Argentina. Of course, this would inevitably come into conflict not only with the bourgeoisie in Argentina, but with imperialism. So the point of the socialist unity of Latin America as an immediate regional conflict is a point that we raise as well, as we understand that, of course, with our local characteristics, which may be different, this same conflict with imperialism, with its control of our natural resources and our industry, with the problem of foreign debt, is repeated in all of the countries of the region.
And of course, the United States now, the Trump administration is desperately trying to get Argentina to break with the Chinese, stop trade with China. And the latest is that the United States wants to import meat into the United States to lower the meat prices and use the money they're collecting from tariffs to pay for the meat that they're going to get from Argentina. It seems like this trade war, imperialist trade war that's developing, is actually exacerbating the economic crisis of capitalism and imperialism. The trade war is actually creating more problems economically and driving the world towards a economic collapse, which of course happened in the 20s, leading to the Depression in that period and World War. What is the relationship of this period to the period of the 20s and the trade war and the conflict now between the United States and Chinese capitalism?
Yeah, well, I think on the one hand, yes, protectionist policies, what they signal is that the existing conditions of the capitalist market have come into crisis, and many of the largest national economies are coming into a crisis under these conditions, and they found a certain way to advance through the capitalist restoration of China, which was a big platform for very cheap manufacturing for many years. But the advancing of the capitalist mode of production within China under the control of the Chinese state, and though in a contradictory way to a certain extent with how capitalism develops in other countries, something closer to what one could call state capitalism, is developing a local capitalist class, though it has relationships of clashes with the officers of the Chinese Communist Party, and they've have a more centralized control of their national economy compared to what it was in the moments of a very open economy to Western investment in the early 21st century. So they've what they thought was their salvation, which was the capitalist restoration in the ex-Soviet Union and China, has now actually put forward rivals for the international market, and this international rivalry is developing into strong economic clashes, as we're seeing in this trade war, strong diplomatic and political clashes, and through proxy wars, and growingly the possibility of direct wars. So the big increase in military spending, but also in open wars from Russia and against Ukraine backed by NATO, to the support for Israel to annex terrain of its neighbors and attack over 8 countries in the immediate region, is a push to establish what Netanyahu calls a greater Israel as a base for U.S. interests in the region. and of course, the military tensions in the Asian, in the Sea of China. They all have a common, they're a part of a common military rivalry, which is threatening for a new world war, which could be, as severe and widespread as World War One and Two. So I think this is the first. I got a bit. I don't remember the full extent of your question, but I think this is the center. And these clashes we're seeing in Latin America have to do with that too. I mean, even China is the main commercial partner, or the main destination for exports of many Latin American countries. Like Brazil, like Chile, like Colombia, like Peru. The U.S. has made blocking this a central point of its policies, and these clashes are advancing in the region. So we are living in Latin America itself, and in this renewed pressure and military pressure and maneuvers and actions of Trump, part of this international dispute as well.
And one of the issues in facing the working class, not just in the United States, but globally, is AI, artificial intelligence. They're building these data centers, draining energy. I know that one of the interviews that I did was a trade unionist in Tucson, Arizona, where they wanted to build a data center in the desert, take the water from the city, grab that water for the data center. The unions, the people, including Republicans, were against that because it's in a desert. They didn't have any water, but they wanted to build the data center. But in regard to AI and the replacement of workers, Goldman Sachs's study said 350 million workers will lose their jobs as a result of AI. You have trucks, automated trucks, autonomous trucks in San Francisco, and Waymo, Google has autonomous taxis. There is no plan for workers who lose their jobs. Is this a part of the program of the United Left Front as far as AI, the effect of AI, and what the solution is for the working class in the context of the development of AI in industry and technology?
Well, under capitalism, technological development, instead of being a solution for the population, is used in a way that destroys our natural resources and which worsens our living conditions, which should not need to be so. AI, like any process which allows automatization of tasks that can be time consuming and different sort of tasks, should actually, under the control of the working class, lead to less work hours and better living conditions for the whole population. But the sick reality of capitalism is that each successive new technological package, from the steam engine to computers and now to AI and all the different automatization of factory work, and so on, that it has been applying under its whole history, has not led to really, on a universal scale, improve the general living conditions. As we talked about, giving an example of the living conditions in many working class neighborhoods in Argentina, and you see this definitely all over semi-colonial countries, but I think you definitely see it in a lot of areas of an imperialist power like the U.S. itself. We're not living under the conditions that the development of the forces of production have generated for us. We're living like if we were in medieval times in many working class neighborhoods, slums, and so on. Or the projects or whatever. We don't have these great things that this advancement of the productive forces supposedly can generate. And to the contrary, they're used in a way which destroy jobs. So I think it has to do with workers' control and the workers' control of production, to be able to apply any technological advancement like AI, like the advancement of AI, in such a way that it is beneficial to the general population, in particular to workers, and to be against any use which generates unemployment and loss of work, and which is an attack on our living conditions.
And of course, they're not talking about reducing the work week
Exactly.
on the docks and for workers who lose their jobs. They're saying you're going to have to work 2 or 3 jobs or go into poverty, slave labor
Exactly.
conditions.
The program of the PO and the program of the Left Front as well is to share out working hours among all available workers in the working class, guaranteeing living wages that cover the cost of living. So this has to be the base. There's absolutely no reason for some workers to be working very long hours, sometimes up to 12 hours, to be taking 3, 4 jobs, while other workers are unemployed and have no job at all. This is the situation which we're seeing in Argentina, and which what they call the gig economy and the platforms and so on have popularized, because they're all forms of precarious labor. So Uber or similar apps, for example, for delivering food to houses and so on, they promote workers to take on, apart from their main job, some extra hours of work if they want to be able to take a holiday or to fix something in their house they're broken. These are the actual ads saying, well, why don't you take on an extra job so you can, fix the part of the ceiling that's broken? So this is what capitalism is offering us, and it's a very high level of exploitation, depressing prospects, and we need to strengthen working class organization and to fight for a workers' government to be able to take these advances of technology, which we don't have to, be against in abstract, because though AI is dangerous in how it also is used to replicate creative work instead of, and to try to replace it, as well as many other sorts of human work, it could also be beneficial if used under a socialist planification of economy.
And this connection now between the United States and Argentina, the working class in Argentina, the working class in the United States, it seems like the same struggles that the Argentinian working class face are the same struggles that American working class face, as far as the attacks, the privatization, the militarization, the threat of fascist dictatorship. How are workers in Argentina and the United States going to be brought together so they fight in a united way together?
Well, I think this is the task of internationalists. No, Steve, you know full well that the first international was founded based on the actions of revolutionaries who united the working classes of Britain and France against the attempts of the bourgeois governments to use one working class against the other. And I think that this attempt, by bourgeois governments to intervene on each other's life, by U.S. imperialism in particular as a common enemy, as we were talking about, we have to face it with working class solidarity. It's the absolute opposite of what the Democrat Party is doing in the U.S. I've heard their campaign, and they're against Trump's intervention, not because he's supporting an ultra-right government which is attacking workers, but because they say we should support the soy producers, the agricultural capitalists of the U.S. who may be affected because of the conditions Milei is proposing for soy producers in Argentina. So the Democrats are for replicating Trump's trade war, but they're saying Trump's not good enough in his trade war to protect U.S. capitalists. I think no, that working class forces have to have a completely different approach. We have to have unity in our struggle against authoritarianism, against the fascist policies of these ultra-right governments, and for common working class solidarity. So I think from the PO and extensive to the United Front Committee for a Labor Party in the US, and to all other organizations who think we have a common ground and the possibility for common initiatives against the Trump government and against all these bourgeois governments. I think there's a huge space to make internationalism the center of the working class action against these governments. This is what we've been working for together in initiatives like the Internationalist Conference recently in Naples. And I think just in general, the movement for Palestine, with these general strikes for Palestine and against the imperialist and Zionist aggression, of course, more needs to be done, but these millions of people and these huge strikes are showing that internationalism is a very powerful tool, and we have to take it into our hands to go up against these challenges we are facing.
Okay, well, I want to thank you very much. We've been talking with Gullermo Kane. He's a professor at the University of Buenos Aires and also with the Workers' Party in Argentina. And later this afternoon, you're going to be going to the U.S. Embassy to raise demands with the United Left Front around the threat of the United States to invade Venezuela, to attack Venezuela, Colombia, and other countries in Latin America. So thanks for joining us today on our show.
Thank you, Steve, and let's talk soon.